Oh, what a disaster of a game. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream for Week 15 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Technically, the first game of the fantasy football playoffs just took place, and as many of us experienced, if you had Cooper Kupp on your team, I'd like to say that, I had just as many receptions as Cooper Kupp tonight. That just gives you an indicator as to how bad this game was as a whole. But if you had Puka Nacua, congratulations, fantastic. Outside of that, we all did dirty. Whether it was Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, dropping touchdowns left, right, and center. Kyron Williams, I guess, 12 points, we'll take it. We'll take it. But is it going to help us win the week? It'll definitely maybe get us there. I don't know, man. Thursday games are rough. Short week after the performance that the Rams put up, after the performance the 49ers have put up to end the game 12-6. I understand that the weather was quite an impacting factor. But even before the game, when I was looking at the weather reports for this week, when I was doing my kicker rankings earlier today, it said 20% chance of rain. Now, again, 20% isn't a matter of, the chances of it actually raining. It's a matter of the area and how much is going to be covered by rain. It seemed like the stadium was the only place getting poured down upon. And that was for the entirety of that, second quarter and much of late in that game. Either way, for many of us, our season may be over. For many of us, we may still have a fighting chance going forward. For many of you, perhaps you played against somebody who had Brock Purdy and George Kittle stack, and somehow, some way, that entire swing is going to benefit you advancing to the next round. Either way, over the course of the next hour, we're answering any and all fantasy football questions regarding Week 15 and beyond. If you guys have a question, make sure you go ahead and click the like button first and foremost, but then once you go ahead and type the question into the live chat or via super chat in order to claim priority, make sure you include your scoring format, half PPR, full PPR standard. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be for me to answer said questions. Thank you. Again, earlier today, we did drop our quarterback and tight end rankings. Obviously, the rankings for quarterback did not come to fruition. Neither did tight end. George Kittle, a no-show. Brock Purdy, a no-show. So, take it with a grain of salt. Again, anything could happen on any given day. That's why we play the games. And let's continue on, shall we? All right, the first super chat of the day came in from Dragon Slayer. It says, Jennings did me dirty. Wish me luck on Sunday. Yeah, we're going to need it. It's funny how I understand that they wanted to get more involvement out of Deebo Samuel and give him as many opportunities as possible. But why break the offense if it's not broken? Why try to fix it? Just keep sending the ball in the direction of Jennings and Kittle and let them carry you. But, they decided to go elsewhere today. And obviously they paid the price, unfortunately, for that scenario. Thank you, Dragon Slayer. I will wish you luck, my brother. Again, we're all going to need the luck. Let's see here. Adam Amar says, playing against Daniels, Mark or Ertz. Okay, very well. More upside. Between the two of them, I would probably lean in the direction of Zach Ertz. If I was going to pick between Mark Andrews and Zach Ertz, I'll take Zach Ertz here in that scenario. Thank you. Nathan Dennison says, good sign going forward for Garendo. Yeah, that's a great sign. The fact that he was able to play the entire game and still be healthy, fantastic. In terms of fantasy point contribution, what did he end up finishing with a half PPR today? Let's see here. If I go to this, he finished off with, let's see here. Is he on 9.5? Again, that's a low-end RB2. We'll take it, though. If you played him, we'll take it. If you didn't, consider yourself somewhat lucky because, again, I would have expected that if he was going to play a full game, someone was going to score within that offense. Obviously, nobody scored. It was a very underwhelming performance from the entire team across the board. So, really, there was no extra benefactoring or extra beneficial kind of opportunities for Garendo late in that game. OJ Running sends in a question, says, Njoku out, question mark? Time will tell. Obviously, tomorrow's practice report is certainly going to be very much so important. As for your follow-up question, says Ferguson, Freiermuth, or Kincaid? In the absence of Njoku, I would play Freiermuth this week. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Ramon, who says, played Purdy and Cup tonight. Yeah, if you played against Purdy and Cup, you pretty much secured yourself a W. Unless your team completely throws the biggest lead of all time, consider yourself pretty lucky, especially considering Purdy went ahead and put a cherry on top of it to throw that arm punt in the late stages of that game. Very interesting. But yeah, Cooper Kupp, man. Again, like I said, I had just as many receptions as Kupp tonight. So really just didn't do us all too well. Ramon had a follow-up, says, okay, interesting. Very well. Jesus sends in a question, says, should I sit Cook for London, Chubb, or Keenan Allen? Yeah, if you're playing in a full PPR, Jesus, I would play Drake London ahead of him. Thank you. Denon sends in a question. Thank you, Denon. Let's see where I can find your question in the chat, Denon. Nothing got attached to it originally, so let me see if I can find it. Okay, says Andrew, that Thursday night game kind of benefited me since my playoff matchup has Kyron and Puka. I mean, both. I mean, I guess technically both of those players were the best options within a given game. But yeah, I mean, they didn't have the upside of a touchdown associated with their performances. So yeah, I guess it technically did benefit you in that circumstance. And then it says in a half PPR, should I pick up Keon Coleman? If so, who should I drop? Jalen Warren, Isaiah Davis, Keenan Allen, Thielen, Mooney. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't play him over any of those alternative options. And quite frankly, I'd just rather keep what you have on roster. So no, I'm not making the swap there. I don't want Keon Coleman on roster. I keep what you have as it currently stands. Thank you. In the event in which, let's say, for example, then you get later, like tomorrow, let's say Breece Hall practices and he's expected to play. At that point, you can drop Isaiah Davis. But until something of that matter occurs, keep what you have. Thank you. All right, let's scroll down here. After Denon, we had a question that came in from Perry or Paul. Perry, thank you. Says Puka Nacua is an absolute dog. I mean, he is, man. He is the entire offense. Without him, Puka Nacua, a lot of this Rams wins just do not occur in any stage. He is just an absolute machine. It says full PPR. Pick 2 running backs between JT, Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and Isaiah Davis, assuming Breece sits. Even in the event in which Breece Hall sits, I'm still going to play Brian Robinson Jr. first and Jonathan Taylor second there, Perry. Thank you. That's my suggestion. Roy Powell sends in a question. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. See what you have here, Roy. Roy says, play Jennings and Kupp, looking for the highest upside between Schultz, Kincaid, Atkins, Smart, Likely, Komet, Calcaterra, and Bellinger. Okay. Bellinger. Of the available, highest upside is probably like an Isaiah Likely play, to be totally honest. I don't see Schultz, Atkins, Komet, Calcaterra, Bellinger. I don't see any of those guys. Kincaid on his first week back against the toughest tight end matchup. I would say that Isaiah Likely probably has the biggest potential for upside, because it would not surprise me if that game ends against the Giants and he scored 2 receiving touchdowns because of how often they continue to score. So I would say that is the highest upside of the bunch. Otherwise, it's Stone Smart and hope that he takes advantage of the matchup against that defense. But considering Justin Herbert, his busted ankle, I would probably just still lean in the direction of Isaiah Likely there. Roy, thank you. Yeah, that's a rough way to start the fantasy playoffs, huh? Jesus says it's half PPR. Okay, Jesus, let me go back up to your prior question. In a half PPR, am I still playing? Let me check my rankings from earlier today. I'm pretty sure I'm still going to play him over Cook. I don't like the idea of playing Cook against the Lions. Again, in the last 5 games, Lions have held opposing running backs to less than 3 yards per carry. I think it's like a 2.89 average. So with that into account, let me just see where I have London comparatively. Let's see. Yeah, I still have Drake London ahead of him in a half PPR. Thank you. All right, let's see what we have here. We had another question, follow-up from Adam Amar, who says, Folk, Riker, Daniel Carlson, Anders Carlson, or Gonzalez. Of those available as of right now, I would lean towards Reichard first and foremost, Zane Gonzalez second, Anders Carlson third, Nick Folk fourth, and then Daniel Carlson last. Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, with that all taken care of, again, hopefully, if you're watching this, you were not a victim of what happened tonight. And when I say victim, is purely, I hope you didn't have to start a Brock Purdy, a Cooper Kupp, or something of that exchange to where you got completely burned. If you did, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. We were going to start Cooper Kupp no matter what. We were going to start Purdy no matter what. Because again, this game was not expected to be a 12-6 end. What a ridiculous turn of events. But hey, that's fantasy football for you. Sometimes it's not about who has the best team. It's about who has the best team within that given week. That's why we play the game. That's why we compete. And hope that the luck is on our side in some of these circumstances. Okay. Let's see in the live chat. What do we have here? Tony Lopez says in a full PPR start 3 for 2 wide receiver spots and 1 super flex. Cool. We have JSN, Adams, Judy, and Anthony Richardson. Cool. Of those available options, I would comfortably play all 3 wide receivers. If it was my league, that's the way that I would go about it. If you told me it was a 6-point per passing touchdown format in that circumstance, Tony, I would probably then go like Adams, Judy, Anthony Richardson. Otherwise, I'm playing all 3 receivers. Thank you. Rick in the chat says, please pick 3 in a full PPR. We have Shakir, Judy, Wilson, Hall, Mike Evans. Thank you. Okay. So in a full PPR, the way I'd go about this, I don't expect Breece Hall to play. Therefore, my suggestion is Mike Evans, Shakir, and Judy. Thank you. YMC in the chat says, in a full PPR, would you play Bucky if he plays over Tracy against the Ravens? In the event that, okay, so here's the thing. Bucky Irving would have to practice in full tomorrow for me to feel comfortable enough to play him over Tyrone Tracy. In the event in which he does not practice in full tomorrow, I would rather in a full PPR play Tracy, because at least I know that Tracy's going to get himself, especially with DeVito. Again, DeVito in his career, over the course of the last 2 seasons in games in which he has started, he is averaging his running backs, I think it's about like 6 targets per game. So we're going to assume that that number probably gets even more kind of exposure. Tracy will probably get 6 receptions this upcoming Sunday in a full PPR, which again would make him the more valuable prospect. Thank you. Jesus sends in a question, says, okay, Chubb or Cook? I would rather play James Cook there. I cannot play Chubb in any league ever. Unless you are playing in a 14 to 20 man league in which the position is relatively thin, James Cook has to play in every scenario there. Jesus, thank you. Let's see here. In the chat, Jack says, Cup should just have taken the night off. I mean, listen, don't get it twisted. As a Rams fan, I love the fact that we won tonight. Okay, Cooper Kupp in the running game, specifically blocking, is a machine himself. Okay, he's not afraid to get his face mask up into a linebacker's chest. He's not afraid to chip block when he needs to. So hey, I'll take his individual performance because it led to a victory. But as for fantasy purposes, I'm sick to my stomach, guys. I will cry myself to sleep tonight because some of my teams are certainly going to struggle to even get out of the first round of the playoffs. Luckily, some of my teams that have Kupp are on a bye week, but you know, it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. BDA Chopper says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, pick 3. Montgomery, Rashad White, Neighbors, JSN, Judy, and Charbonnet. Cool. So this is very much so contingent, BDA Chopper, on players being out. In the event in which Bucky Irving and Kenneth Walker are both out, BDH, you are playing Rashad White and Charbonnet alongside of Montgomery. In the event in which both of their other running backs, Walker and Bucky, play, you would then play Montgomery, Judy, and JSN. Thank you. Let's see here. Tristan Williams in the chat says, Bucky or Cook? Even in the event in which Bucky plays, I would not play him over Cook. Thank you. LJ in the chat says, guy in my league had Purdy and Debo. Sucks to suck. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's rough, man. It is rough. Scott in the chat says, play Purdy and Kittle, was number 1 seed, no first round bye. The fact that you don't have a first round bye, legitimately, I do feel bad for you, Scott. That's horrible. Especially if it's a 12-man league and 8 teams make the playoffs, or if it's a 10-man league and 8 teams make the playoffs. In a 10-man league, that should never occur. In a 12-man league, I can understand it if it's like a more friendly experience. But if we're talking about like if it's a $100 buy-in at least, you got to have a first-round buy, minimum. Like there's no way you should be able to get smacked out of the first round after 14 weeks of a whole marathon. I mean, that's awful. I'm sorry for you. That is bad. All right, Stone Smartest Sleeper. I mean, look, as it currently stands, if we're going to get into a situation to where against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if Herbert's healthy and Ladd McConkey doesn't play, I'd assume that Stone Smart could be of value, but I'm not going to rank him in the... As it currently stands, I have him ranked as my tight end number 21. So like, I'm not putting too much into it, but again, he could be a sleeper option. He could be someone that it's in the hidden gems tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. Let's see here. AC in the chat says, flex Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Adam Thielen, or Rico Dowdle in a full PPR, or Sharp if Walker is out. In the event in which Walker is out, Charbonnet is 1,000% your starter. In the case in which he is not out, at that point, I'd probably just pivot to playing Rico Dowdle there. If not Rico Dowdle, it would then be like DJ Moore under the assumption that he gets a full practice over the course of tomorrow. Let's see here. 513 Rookie says, Kenneth Walker, still not practicing, with Chase Brown and Sharby locked in, flex, standard, Pacheco or Jonathan Taylor. I'd rather play Jonathan Taylor as my flex. Thank you, Rookie. Appreciate it. Marco in the chat. Marco, let me see where your question is. It says full PPR, TJ Hawkinson or Mark Andrews? In a full PPR, I'd rather play TJ Hawkinson. Again, the Bears cannot stop opposing tight ends. Next question. Was it James Conner or Chuba Hubbard? I'd rather play James Conner, but I do believe that both of them must play. Again, they're both going to be, or both currently are, considered top 10 running backs as it stands. Well, both top 12. Chuba Hubbard's my number 12. James Conner's my number 10. I would still play, Conner there if I had to pick one of the two. But yeah, I would love to play both because again, they're both top 12 in my rankings. But if I had to choose one, I'll take Conner and Hawkinson. Thank you. All right, let's see. Ramon says Daniels, Connor, Jacobs, AJB, Chase, Jefferson, Hawkinson. That's your roster, Ramon? I mean, it sounds like you're winning this week, brother. Yeah, unless there is the greatest throw of all time, which I don't foresee occurring. But hey, listen, there are some things that I don't foresee happening, and it does happen anyway. You should be good to go there, brother. Michael R. in the chat says Laporta, Otten, or Freiermuth. For right now, the order in which I would suggest you go about it, Michael, will be Freiermuth 1, Otten 2, Laporta 3. Somebody asked Devontae Adams or Addison in the flex. I don't mind you playing Addison there, but I currently do have it as Devontae Adams. Super Dave in the chat says Kraft or Hunter Henry in a full PPR league. Hey, 11.5 for Garendo is probably about what Sincere will do. I mean, 11.5 in a full PPR, sure, but yeah, I mean, I predominantly play in a half PPR league. That is like my main. I would say the main leagues that I play in that I actually care about the most, they are half PPR, because I think a full point per reception. Again, this is a completely different conversation, but a full point per singular reception is too many points. It skews everything. You would at that point need to play in a tight end premium where you need an additional half point for a tight end reception. Anyway, just for balance purposes, it just screws everything up. But in this circumstance, I would prefer to play Tucker Kraft over Hunter Henry. I think Austin Hooper's efforts as of late have been pretty detrimental to Hunter Henry's overall upside in that circumstance. Thank you. Let's see here. Scrolling down, we had a question. We had another one follow up from Ramon who says, versus Allen, Bijan, Harris, Metcalf, Adams, Bowers, JSN, pick a side. Week 16, pick a side. Okay. If this is a week 16 conversation between these two teams, Allen, Bijan, Harris, Metcalf. I mean, I would still say that you have the better team. I don't think it's even remotely close. You have Chase, AJ Brown, and Jefferson. Like, Ramon, I don't know what. Well, come on. I mean, it's not fair. Like, I don't know what should, like, it's not fair. You have the better team. You have 3 top, like, 6 wide receivers. I mean, if you lose, I mean, it's just because you got unlucky. Otherwise, there's no reason you should ever lose with that kind of a roster. Jesus says Tracy or Cook. I'd rather play James Cook there. Thank you. YMC sends in a follow-up, says, if I win my league, host another stream so we can give back. No, we're good, man. Listen, if you win your league, keep everything. I'm just glad to help. Thank you again, YMC. Appreciate it, brother. All right, let's see here. Breezy5454 in the chat says, 1 for the flex, Bigsby, McCormick, Xavier Worthy, or Westbrook Ikine. Okay, so of those available, I'd probably lean towards playing McCormick as the flex. Again, the commitment to the running game by the Raiders offensive coordinator was quite apparent in the second half of that game. So if that's going to continue to stay consistent within their approach this week against the Falcons, considering the Falcons won't be jumping out to a major league lead, I would still lean towards McCormick in that circumstance. Thank you. Now, if you were in a situation where you were like down a bunch of points or needed some omega upside, again, we could reintroduce Westbrook into the conversation. But again, it is very sketchy. Shippa in the chat says, Andrew, thank you very much. Purdy is a bad call. I mean, is Purdy a bad call or did he just play bad? There's a complete difference between the two of those, right? It says, but Purdy was a bad call, so was Kupp. Saying Purdy and Kupp were bad calls just speaks to the tone deafness that you have within the circumstance. You understand that Kupp, a elite receiver in terms of fantasy purposes, is not a bad call. You understand that, right? You're just trolling. I'm sure you're just trolling. That's why I won't even put too much into your. I think you probably, I'm gonna guess you had Kupp on your team. You're upset about it, and if that's the case, I apologize. Listen, brother, it is what happens. It is the case of fantasy football. Sometimes a player is not going to play well. Just like last Thursday, we had the same conversation. Jaden Reed didn't show up. Same thing happens this week in regards to Cooper Kupp. They don't show up. We just have to live with it and keep it moving. But yeah, they're definitely not bad calls. I'll tell you that much. I know that for a fact. Jocelyn says, what's up, bro? Which kicker should I pick? McLaughlin, Lutz, or Reichard? Depends on weather. Let me see what the weather report looks like for this weekend between those 3. So as it currently stands, again, it's expected to rain in Cleveland, expected to rain in Tennessee, expected to rain in Carolina. What about, where's Denver this week? Denver is, where the heck is Denver? They're going to play indoors in the Colts Stadium? Is that where they're at this weekend? Why can't I find it? Broncos. There they are. They're at home, clear weather. Perfect. And then the Reichard's going to be at home, right? Okay, cool. So between the two of them, I would probably pick Reichard first. I go Lutz second. And then I go McLaughlin third. That's the direction I'm leaning in as it currently stands. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Scott, horrible game. Yeah, that was one of the worst games that we've seen all season long on Thursday. Roma Dunze or Mooney in a full PPR? I'd rather play Mooney there. Jake G says, help. Who do I start? Do I start Thielen, Reed, Bucky, or Devontae Smith? Pick 2. Of those available, again, I don't expect Bucky Irving to play, and even if he does, I probably wouldn't suggest him in this circumstance. I'd probably go with Thielen and Devontae Smith of the group. If Bucky Irving gets a full participation of practice tomorrow, I'll change my mind on that matter, and I'll go with Thielen and Bucky, but it's very much so contingent on exactly that occurring. Chris Bentley in the chat says, none of them were bad calls. It's just raining. Yeah, I mean, look, it happens. It is what it is. But like, I mean, people telling me that it's a bad call or like I sold their team. I mean, listen, I don't mind being the bad guy here. I just know that the decisions that I'm making and suggesting are, especially at those capacity, are not bad calls. Murph, what's up? Says Flowers, Swift, Tyron Tracy, Braylon Allen, no Brees Hall, pick 2. Okay, under the assumption that there is no Braylon Allen this week, I would play Tyron Tracy under the assumption there's no Brees Hall this week, excuse me, I would play Braylon Allen alongside of Tyron Tracy there. Genie in the chat says, this guy had Williams as the number 8 running back this week. He got another 13 points. Okay, so another person that's very upset about Kyron Williams not playing well. Very well. Have a great night, guys. Jeez, man. The volume, this last 2 Thursdays, because again, I understand it's win to get in scenarios. The last 2 Thursday streams, people coming in here just angry at me as if I'm the one calling the plays and carrying the rock. I mean, hey, listen, I don't mind being the bad guy. I don't mind at all. But people need to have a reality check as if, fantasy is just an automatic points. It's not automatic. There's efforts. There's people playing on a short week Thursday, right? Checkmate says, I guess Waddle's a better play than Kupp. I mean, technically, based on everyone's going to be a better play than Kupp this week. Even guys that are in the free agent market are going to be a better play than Kupp this week. JT or Tracy? Andres, I'd play JT there this week. Let's see here. Brandon DeCoste says PPR pick 3. JJ, AJ Brown, Chase, Neighbors. Yeah, AJ Brown, Chase, JJ. Those are the 3. Neighbors has to sit on the bench. Charbonnet or AJ. In the event in which there's no Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet has to play there. Has to. Let's see here. All right, Emiliano, where's this question? Emiliano says, started Kyron, Kupp, and Juwan. I'm cooked. Yeah, you're absolutely cooked. There's no question about that, brother. That is a fact. Johnny38 says, I have both Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. If Kenneth Walker ends up playing, who should I start? In the event in which he does play, then you would have to start him. But I would expect a significantly lesser version of what we typically get out of Kenneth Walker because I would expect it to be a split backfield of touches. I'd expect him to go back and forth rather than it being a full workload for Kenneth Walker. So again, you pretty much have to hope that, at this point, I may even get to a point by the time we get to Sunday, if Kenneth Walker's active, I might just play Charbonnet ahead of him. Unless there's a full participation of practice tomorrow that indicates that he's fully healthy, even if he does play on Sunday, there's nothing that says that he's not going to re-injure himself and leave the game just like Bucky did this most recent week. So at that point, I'd probably just suggest playing Charbonnet just to be safe. Because at this point, I'm not trying to get cooked by any player going out there and leaving, unfortunately, with an injury. That's why we approached tonight by not trying to play Guerrero in many of our circumstances. Yesterday, when everybody was asking me about Guerrero, I was like, listen, we don't know if he's going to be able to sustain that full game with his foot sprain. If he lives midway through, it's a lot of risk implied, considering the capacity of where we're at in the fantasy playoffs, win or go home. Sean K sends in a question. Sean, thank you very much. Says, they're still going to try to get Debo the ball. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, imagine. Kupp cooked me, but each game is 2-week playoff, so wish me luck. Yeah, I mean, let's hope for the best next week, Sean. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to keep trying to quote-unquote give Debo the ball going forward. I think they should probably reestablish the fact that Juwan Jennings is the best receiver on that team, and Kittle should be a mainstay in terms of elite exposure over the middle of the field. Let's see here. Peace Dog says pick a quarterback for this week. For week 16. It says Jaden Daniels versus Philly, Kyler versus Carolina, or Jameis Winston versus Cincinnati. I mean, as it currently stands, Jaden Daniels' last outing against the Philadelphia Eagles was quite rough. Depending on how Kyler plays this week, I think I might play him over Jaden Daniels next week. But again, it just depends. If Kyler shows up this week, and it just becomes a full running funnel in which they're not able to consistently throw the ball, unfortunately, because they didn't take such an early lead. At that point, it'd be pretty discouraging in terms of his potential for week 16. I know every week is different, but there's a lot of momentum in this league. So for right now, I'm going to say Jaden Daniels, and depending on how Kyler Murray performs within the given week, we can adjust it. Clarence says, Clarence, you don't have to defend me, my man. Listen, people are going to be upset, and that's just the nature of the business here, brother. But I do appreciate it, Clarence. AK in the chat says, Waddle, Cooper, Rachaad White, or Tracy in the flex. Yeah, I would like to play Rachaad White there out of all those options. Again, if Tracy's not going to play, Rachaad White is the automatic. In the event in which Bucky does end up playing, in the event in which Bucky does not play Rachaad White, in the event in which he does play, I'd probably then just pivot to Waddle. All right, let's see here. Scrolling down. Ramon says, shout out for being a Jacobs guy. I mean, listen, I've been a Jacobs guy my entire life. Jacobs has always just been like an absolute beast. Even in his early days with the Raiders, the guy's always been a beast. It's just always been a matter of, can Jacobs stay healthy? And that's why yesterday when people were asking me, like, Andrew, like, who do I pick up just in case in the event in which Jacobs could go down? The primary suggestion in terms of his handcuff is Chris Brooks, but like there's nobody within this backfield that'll be able to encapsulate all the value which he's been able to present as of late because he's just too good. Jay Park sends in a question, says, hey Andrew, Green Bay or Colts for the playoffs? As for all 3 weeks, I'd prefer to have, as of right now, probably the Colts, considering their week 16 and 17 matchups are just, they're just really solid. Even this week, I don't mind it. Even though I don't love the matchup against Denver, I don't feel like I want to play Green Bay against the upcoming matchups against Seattle, against Minnesota. Those aren't very exciting. I do like the idea of playing Green Bay in week 16 against the Saints, especially considering, Jake Haener is a starting quarterback. But as of right now, Green Bay for week 16. Otherwise, I would lean towards the Colts elsewhere. Thank you. All right, let's see here. After Jay Park, we had a Ramon who says, I made 2 trades this year, Harris and Adams for Jacobs, and London for Mason and Mason for Chase. You didn't just cook. You fried, you deep fried, and rebattered and fried again there, Ramon. That's ridiculous, brother. That's crazy. Patrick in the chat says, PPR, these are my available options, which I need 2 wide receiver spots and 2 running back spots, okay? At the flex, who would you play? Wide receiver options are Terry McLaurin, BTJ, Marvin Harrison, Devontae Smith. Running back options are Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown. Cool. So, as it currently stands, 2 wide receiver spots, 2 running back spots, and 1 flex. Your 2 running backs are pretty much set, right? You only have, unless there's another part of this question that I'm not seeing, Patrick, I only see 2 running backs. So you're playing if you're playing Chase Brown and you're playing Jonathan Taylor as your 1-2 combo. As for wide receiver, McLaurin and BTJ. And then within your flex, I'm going to play Marvin Harrison Jr. there. If there's another available option, a running back that you did not end up fitting into this question, I'm more than happy to take a look at it, Patrick. Let's see here. We had a question that was sent in from King Alec. Alec, thank you. Says, bad start with Jennings. Dropped Purdy last minute. Flex for upside. PPR Devontae, Wan'Dale Robinson, Douglas, Vele, Tucker, Isaiah Davis, Justice Hill, or McCormick. In a full PPR, if, for example, Breece Hall is out, I would probably play Isaiah Davis over the bunch. That's probably the way I'd go about it. If Breece Hall does end up playing, at that point, I'd pivot to playing most likely McCormick, and then the third best option would be Devontae Smith. Thank you. Jason Vicken sends it a question, says in a 0.75 PPR, Josh Downs or Neighbors? Don't trust Tommy. Yeah, I don't mind playing Downs there. Again, he got a full practice regimen today, so I would assume that Josh Downs is going to be implicated for a pretty solid week. I'd say the worst secondary member for the Denver Broncos has been their nickel corner. So there's probably a little bit of an advantage there for Josh Downs over the course of this week in comparison to, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce on the outside. So for right now, yeah, I don't mind that at all. Jason, thank you. Patrick says Kenneth Walker. Got it. So in the event in which Kenneth Walker would play, he would be your flex in this scenario, but otherwise it would be as it currently, or as it was previously mentioned, that's the way I would go about it. Jordan in the chat says, as a Josh Allen manager, is it smart to hang on to Bo Nix in case weather in Buffalo gets super bad? I mean, look, Josh Allen has proven in his career, regardless of what the weather kind of exists in Buffalo, unless it's a game in which they literally can't throw the ball because the weather's so bad, he is still going to be able to produce. Again, a couple weeks back against San Francisco in a terrible weather game in Buffalo, still was able to deliver over 25 fantasy points. So I would assume regardless of the weather situation, he is going to still be an efficient option. I mean, you got to remember, this is a quarterback that played his entire career in college at Wyoming, had a 50% passing completion percentage, mainly because when you throw the ball in Wyoming, the weather is going to take the ball and let it ride. So again, I wouldn't worry too much about Josh Allen going forward here. Thank you, Remote. Appreciate it. Mikey F's in the chat says, full PPR, bro. Please drop one from Jacoby Myers, James Cook, Aaron Jones. Thanks. Appreciate it, bro. If I have to drop one of these players, I probably end up dropping Jacoby Myers. I think in the long term, if you have other alternative wide receivers that are just significantly better options than Jacoby Myers, considering the association with Desmond Ridder going forward, I'd prefer to just have the two running backs on roster, Cook and Aaron Jones, especially considering the upcoming schedule for James Cook. I understand he's coming off of a very underwhelming week against the Rams this most recent Sunday, but the upcoming schedule, they take on the Jets and the New England Patriots in weeks 16 and 17. James Cook should be able to feast in both of those games. Gabriel in the chat says, in a full PPR, I've got Josh Allen, Kamara, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Shakir, Devontae, Hawkinson, Andrews, and Ray McLeod bench 2. If I'm benching 2 of these players, Ray McLeod and Andrews are most likely the guys that end up getting benched. Now, that is under the assumption that Bucky Irving plays. If, in fact, Bucky Irving is not going to play, at that point, Bucky Irving would sit alongside of Ray McLeod. Thank you. Let's see here. Football in the chat says 10-team full PPR. Final is week 16. Should I grab Tillman off of the waivers for Algier, my handcuff to Bijan, just so my league mates can't play him? Would I go? No, just let your league mates play him. If your league mates are that desperate to where they're picking up Cedric Tillman and playing him, let them do it. I would rather just keep the insurance of Bijan, because in the event in which he was to go down and you needed to play a backup for him, again, Algier would be assumed to be a pretty solid start, probably at a top 15 capacity in the absence of Bijan, regardless of matchup. Let's see here. Okay, scrolling down, we had a super chat sent in from, we took care of Ramon. Thank you again. Steve in the chat says Downs or Thielen or Dell. Between the three of them in a full PPR, I would go Thielen 1, Downs 2, Dell 3. Steve, thanks. Grabba says JT or Cook. I'll take JT there. All right, Ashley Gomez sends in a question. Says, I played Garendo over Myers in my flex because I don't trust Ritter. Laughing emoji, yeah. It says Shakir or JMO. Between the two of them, I think you have to play Shakir. Obviously, JMO has incredibly high upside with a singular play that can be made down the field, but as it currently stands, the stability that Shakir presents on a weekly basis, it's just kind of difficult to pass up on. So I'll lean towards Shakir there. As for your other question, Jalen Hurts or Baker, I will take Jalen Hurts there. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it. All right, Tony Lopez in the chat says full PPR going up against Burrow, Jefferson, Nico, McLaurin, Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Mark Andrews. Am I cooked? That is a very strong team. I can objectively tell you that is a very, very, very strong team. So, I mean, you're going to need some fantasy god help in order to pull that one out, brother. Let's see here. Krishan in the chat says, do you think Njoku and Pickens could be back in week 16, at least one of them? Is there a confirmation that Njoku's not going to play? I understand that the direction that he's currently trending in regards to his injury with the hamstring probably bodes, probably he's not in the best position for him to, potentially be prepared in order to play. But I don't know if there's a confirmation that he's going to specifically be out. Let's say, for example, tomorrow he does not practice. Then at that point, we would probably assume he's not going to be available. Based on what information we've been given from the Steelers organization regarding Pickens' injury, they did say it's a grade 2 strain. So the likelihood is, based on my experience from just fantasy-related kind of injuries, typically it's going to take more than returning in week 16. It'd probably be a week 17 return. And by the time they get there, considering the Steelers are most likely already going to be like playoff bound, they probably may even hold him out as far as they can in order to give themselves the best chance of him coming back healthy for the actual NFL playoffs. So don't expect, Pickens back for a while. We'll keep an eye on Njoku for tomorrow. Let's see here. Sume says, how do we feel about Kupp rest of season? Again, we're not worried about Kupp. This is one bad game. Again, this is the same conversation we had about Jaden Reed. The only difference being Jaden Reed doesn't put up 15 plus fantasy points on a consistent basis. Cooper Kupp does. Cooper Kupp is typically ranked in my top 12 for a reason because, again, the guy is a machine. He puts up incredible performances. Yes, he screwed many of us tonight, but that is just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you're going to have players show up. Sometimes they're going to disappear. And, in an inopportune time for him to not show up in this performance, it is unfortunate, but it's very similar to like T. Higgins on Monday. It happens. When you're playing second fiddle in a low-scoring game, it's just not the best recipe for success. Hillside says, I started both Kupp and Purdy. I'm done. Tracy and Taylor in the flex. Yeah, you'd have to just play Taylor there and hope for the best, brother. You're going to have to hope for a Jonathan Taylor like legacy game. Isaiah Saucer says, Higgins or Montgomery, please. At that point, I'd probably just roll with Montgomery. Pretty safe. Again, he's going to get you your 13 to 15 points minimum. I think that at that point is just too good to pass up on. Mikey says, yeah, he's most likely out and said week to week for Njoku according to fantasy doctors. Okay. Yeah, if there's an actual doctor that made a comment on it regarding the strain and how long that's probably going to be out for, then yeah, that's not good. That's not a good sign. We'll have to wait and see. Patrick 510 says Benson, I have Connor, Bucky, Tracy, Pickens, and Njoku. I have McBride. Green Bay defense for week 16, Baltimore defense for this week, Eagles defense on the waivers. Should I scoop them up for week 17? And if so, who would I drop? In the event in which you were to drop, no, actually, I wouldn't scoop them up. I think it's too early because I don't want any of these potential players. Again, I don't want like maybe Connor goes down and then you miss out on having Benson because that would be the guy that you end up dropping. But for right now, no, don't make any drops. We're just going to take it 1 week at a time. Let's perform in week 15. Let's win in week 16. This time next week, we can talk about picking up a defense for week 17. Marion Garcia sends in a question. Thank you. Says top 3 to 5 defenses for week 16 and 17. Okay, so let's look at week 16 really quickly, and I'll just give you guys an overarching kind of thought process as to how it's going to go. Again, injuries could occur that alter this, but as it currently stands, when we approach week 16, my favorite waiver wire pickup defense to play is the Green Bay Packers. They play against the Saints, which again, Jake Haener is their starting quarterback as it currently stands. That would be a fantastic matchup to take advantage of. Additionally, within week 16, another defense you could pick up and theoretically play in order to find success would be the Falcons taking on the New York Giants. If the Bills somehow, some way get dropped this week because they play against the Detroit Lions, you would pick up the Bills as well to play them against the New England Patriots in week 16. That would be fantastic. Outside of those scenarios, looking across the board, maybe the Colts versus the Titans could be a potential pickup and play. The LA Rams defense against the Jets could be a potential pickup and play. Could theoretically pick up and play the Raiders defense against the Jaguars, but that would be it in terms of week 16. Those are a couple of thought process ideas, just throwing it out there. As for week 17, in terms of defenses to pick up and play, really, we're just trying to target the Giants. So the Colts against them should be solid. The Chargers versus the Patriots should be solid. I think the Commanders versus the Atlanta Falcons could be decent. We could end up picking up and playing. Like, you could pick up and play the Jaguars defense against the Titans. That could also work. That's pretty much it. I think everything else looks kind of sketchy or just potentially is just not available in your leagues. Thank you, Marion. All right, Diego sends in a question. Thank you, Diego. Appreciate it. Diego says, in a full PPR, I can't decide between Tracy, Rachaad White, one of the running backs, and one flex. Also, I have Warren and Elijah Moore. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, Tracy and Rachaad White are your two best players in that circumstance. So as long as Bucky Irving is out, even if Bucky Irving wasn't out, I would play Rachaad White over Warren and Elijah Moore. I don't think it's relatively close. I think both the options that you currently have at running back and flex are the proper decisions to make within the given week. Thank you. All right, we had a question sent in from Alex. Alex says, Njoku out waiver Ingram, Schultz, Johnson, Mayer, or Atkins. Okay, so, or Akins, excuse me, not Atkins. Under the assumption that Njoku would be out, okay, which is, again, we're trending in that direction. Let's hope it's not going to take place. Please, for my fantasy team's sake. In the event in which it does take place, though, if I'm picking up let's say, for example, it's a half PPR, depending on Evan Ingram, again, Evan Ingram did not practice today or yesterday. So if Evan Ingram doesn't practice tomorrow, don't expect him to play, to then you would be picking up and playing Juwan Johnson. So Juwan Johnson would be the number one guy if Ingram is not going to be practicing tomorrow. After Juwan Johnson, if he is not available because somebody else beats you to him, I would then at that point go with Akins. Thank you. Criminal Mind sends in a question, says half PPR bench 2. Thielen, DJ Moore, Ingram, Worthy, Pittman, Warren, Gus. Cool. Of those available options, if I'm benching 2 of them, I'm going to bench Worthy and Ingram. I would play Thielen, Moore, Pittman, Warren, and Gus ahead of them. As for defense, Chargers or Bengals, I would prefer as of this week to play Do I want to play the Bengals defense? I do. I want to play the Bengals defense this week between the 2 of them. Thank you. Chris Moraga sends in a question. Chris, where is your question, brother? There it is. It says, in a full PPR, flex, pick 1, Tracy, McCormick, or Hawkinson. As it currently stands, I would go Hawkinson there. Tracy will be second. McCormick will be third. Next question. PPR, wide receiver in the flex. Pick 1 of each. McConkey, Myers, Flowers, Rachaad White, Ramondre. Cool. Your flex is Rachaad White. Your wide receiver would be McConkey. If McConkey can't play because he's injured, you pivot to playing Myers there, wide receiver. Thank you. All right. Bet on You says Waddle or Metcalf. I'd prefer to play Waddle this week. Jocelyn says lost Njoku and have these options to pick up. Sanders, Fant, Smart, Bellinger. Of those available, I pick up Stone Smart and I play them. Thank you. Carlos Ruiz in the chat says, should I pick up Jamal Jamal McLaughlin. You mean Jaleel? I'm assuming your autocorrect screwed you over there a little bit, Carlos. So Jaleel McLaughlin and drop Michael Pittman. I have St. Brown, McLaurin. No, I mean, again, I don't think you can confidently start Jaleel McLaughlin unless Javonte Williams and or Audric Estime were injured. Again, it's too much of a committee situation there, so I wouldn't make that swap, no. All right, we had another follow-up question from Criminal Minds who says, also in a full PPR, bench 2, Shakir Odunze, Warren McCormick, Tank, Zay Flowers. Of those available, if I'm benching 2, I'm going to bench... It probably ends up being like a Tank, Dell, Odunze benching, and I'd play Shakir, McCormick, Warren, and Flowers. As for your next question, also, if Ingram is out, Jawan Johnson, Calcaterra, likely, or Noah Gray? Jawan Johnson is the next man up there. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We continue on. Good to go. Okay. Alex says he's out. Alex, I mean, again, there's not been a designation unless you have a link. If you'd like to share that link with me, that'd be greatly appreciated. Just tell me where you found the report, because there hasn't been a public announcement that I have seen specifically from the Cleveland Browns that designate that he's going to be out. Now, is he trending towards being out? Yeah, most likely. But as for the actual designation to hit, I don't think that's hit in terms of like if he was out already, he'd have the O next to him on like Yahoo and on Sleeper and on ESPN, and we could throw him into our IR. I don't think that has taken place yet. So again, there's still an outside chance. All right, let's hear. Tourd sends in a question. Says, my friend, you saved me from Debo. Okay, I saved you from Debo. I think Debo could have had an easy touchdown. He just dropped it. I mean, again, they gave him every opportunity to make plays. He dropped many of them. So you saved yourself ultimately. Quarterback, JH is in Justin Herbert or Caleb Williams. If Justin Herbert is healthy this week, and we can get a full practice by tomorrow, and there's not going to be any sort of instability with the high ankle sprain, I'd be comfortable rolling with him, assuming Ladd McConkey is active. If there's no Ladd McConkey at that point, I would just play Caleb. Thank you. All right, let's see here. I got potential sends in a question. Says, should I start Zay, Thielen, or Njoku? As it currently stands, I would play Thielen. Again, if Njoku's not going to play, it's probably just a Thielen game this week. Frenzy 40K says full PPR. Evans, Reed, Braylon Allen. Yeah, between those three options, I have to play Evans. Hope for the upside. Astro says he's projected 0 on Sleeper. Got it. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the out designation. Once the O is presented next to his name, then I know it's confirmed. So then I can move him and adjust everything accordingly. Let's see here. It says Debo cried for the ball and didn't get... Yeah, I mean, again, it happens, man. I mean, I don't blame him for asking for the ball. He wants more opportunities. You know, just today the weather didn't, permit for him to have the most upside. Obviously dropped too many passes. Grayson in the chat says, Nick Westbrook, Ikene, Ray McLeod, Tim Patrick, Wanda Robinson, Jaleel McLaughlin. Sorry, that's Jalen McMillan, excuse me. Trey Palmer. Sorry, that's not Trey Palmer. That is Josh Palmer in the flex. Okay, so in the event in which there was no Ladd McConkey, I'd play Josh Palmer there, Grayson. But I would assume that Ladd McConkey does end up playing this week, to which I would suggest you play Ray McLeod. That's what my current suggestion is. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Rodney Bryce in the chat says, full PPR. Need 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. BTJ, Waddle, Lamb, and Charbonnet. Under the assumption that Kenneth Walker is not available this week, Charbonnet is your flex. Then your 2 starting wide receivers would be Lamb and BTJ. Thank you. Let's see here. Onich says, I'm finally dropping Debo this week. I don't blame you, Onich. I don't blame you. Personally, I couldn't do it, but listen, you've definitely got a stronger gut. Let's see here. Steelhands23 says start 2. Pacheco, Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson, Dowdle. Of those available, Dowdle and Brian Robinson are my 2 suggestions. Thank you, Steelhands. Steve says, Andrew, where do you rank Najee versus McCormick? I have Najee Harris. Let me see. In a half PPR, Najee Harris is currently 1, 2. I have Najee at 24, McCormick at 29 in a half PPR. They're relatively close. The only thing that scares me about McCormick is Alexander Madison's return. I don't know exactly what to deal or what to expect from the backfield usage of Alexander Madison in comparison to McCormick, considering they haven't both been active in the backfield in quite some time. Let's see here. Okay, we took care of that. Bet on you says Kittle getting 10 plus in PPR might have saved my... Yeah, I mean... We'll take it, man. We'll take it. We'll take anything that we got, to be honest. Let's see here. We took care of that. Ross Roberts sends in a question. Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it. Says in a half PPR, drop Dowdle, Tracy, or Jonnu Smith to pick up Buffalo or Los Angeles defense. Interesting. I have Saquon, Achane, Jacobs, Kelsey, and Tampa Bay's defense. Want both defenses for week 16 and 17. Okay, so here's my only issue with the strategy there, Ross Roberts. If you were to theoretically drop any of those players, I would assume that teams in your league would improve by picking them up and utilizing them against you, which I don't want that to be the case. I don't want them to pick up Dowdle, Tracy, or Jonnu and utilize it against you in an upcoming matchup. So again, if you were very confident that these teams wouldn't even pick these players up and use it against you, and this is not going to be a possibility, then okay, sure, we can drop Tracy and make that exchange. But again, I don't know if I want to drop that in order to give other teams in your league ammunition to utilize against you. That's my only concern there. Let's see here. Christian K in the chat says full PPR pick 2 this week. We have Keenan Allen, Waddle, Addison, and Thielen. Cool. Of those available, the current 2 highest ranked players I have in a full PPR are Addison and Thielen. 513 rookie says, with Herbert banged up, would you temper expectations of McConkey? I mean, I don't even know what McConkey's deal is. He's banged up still. So I would temper my expectations regarding both. Again, McConkey, when healthy over the course of the last month of the season, I've had in my top 15 rankings. I have him at like wide receiver 21. Like I'm expecting a lesser version of him, but I still expect him to play relatively well considering the matchup. And if he's going to be able to get himself a full participation to practice tomorrow, I'd still be expecting, decent production overall. All right, let's see here. Okay, Supdo sends in a question. Says, lineup advice, full PPR, Knicks/Baker. I will take Baker there. Achane, Connor, Walker, Charbonnet, Kamara. Cool. I will take Achane. And if, in fact, Kenneth Walker is out, I play Charbonnet next to him as your RB2. Wide receiver, you have Hill, A.J. Brown, Judy Myers, Thielen, Reed. I'll take Hill and A.J. Brown as your 1-2 combo. And then within your 2 flex options, I'm playing Connor and I am playing Kamara. So the only theoretical change that we would make, Supdo, the only thing that we would change, okay, theoretically, is if in fact Charbonnet and Walker were both active, so you couldn't isolated play Charbonnet, you would then default, or you would just you'd put them both on the bench, you'd still leave it as Achane, Connor as RB1 and 2, Kamara within the flex, but then your alternative flex would then at that point be Thielen. Thank you. Wade sends in a question, says, would you start McLaurin or Adams this week in a full PPR? I'd much rather play McLaurin. If I'm not mistaken, Noah Brown is expected not to play, which is their primary number 2 wide receiver of the Washington Commanders, which again, this is not going to be a game in which they're completely airing it out the entire, yeah. As it currently stands, Noah Brown dealing with a kidney injury, not expected to play. There's a reason why earlier this week, they signed KJ Osborne, who was cut from the New England Patriots. So yeah, Noah Brown's not going to play. Really, the only wide receiver with experience on the field with any sort of rapport with, or any receiving options that have rapport that on a consistent basis will get targets is Ertz and Terry McLaurin. Play Terry this week. Thank you. And then also that secondary is not good at all. So Terry McLaurin should be able to dominate. All right, Chris Bentley in the chat says, is there any situation bad enough where you would pick up Smart for week 15? Yeah, absolutely. I don't have an issue with that. Yeah, if you're playing in a league where you have a lot of depth if you're playing in a league that has very limited depth, mainly because it is either small bench spots or a lot of teams in your league, let's say 14 or 16 teams, I have no problem picking up and playing Stone Smart. But again, it's only in very deep leagues. I have him as my number 21 tight end on the week. It's a good matchup, but it's very much so worrisome considering Herbert's status and the fact that, again, he's not a world beat. He could end up being like the next best tight end on this offense. Who knows? He could end up Wally Pipping Will Dissly. But again, there's a reason why he's been the backup for quite a while here. All right. Brendan Pipes sends in a question. Says, start 3. I need 1 running back, 2 flex between BTJ, Malik Neighbors, Pacheco, James Cook, also Kenneth Walker / Charbonnet. Okay. So in the event in which Kenneth Walker is out, as we are anticipating, Charbonnet is going to be your running back. Then you would flex BTJ alongside of Neighbors, assuming it's a full PPR. If it's a half PPR, I would play BTJ alongside of James Cook. Then, let's say, for example, you're in a situation in which you are playing and Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet are both active. I wouldn't play either of the two. I'd play James Cook as your RB and BTJ Malik Neighbors as your 2 flex options. Thank you. Lou sends in a question. Thank you, Lou. Says, second year in a row making the playoffs. Thanks, no problem, Lou. Glad I can help. Victor in the chat says Dalton Kincaid or Juwan Johnson. I'd rather play Juwan Johnson this week. Thank you. Football says, am I dropping Keon Coleman to add another running back like Sincere or one of the Jets running backs? I have no issue with doing either of the two. It's purely just a matter of how you want to set up your roster. If I was in your position, yes, I would probably, if you're looking for the future, if you've already got solidified running backs on roster for this week and you're not looking to try to play one of the running backs that you've mentioned here, Football, I'd pick up Sincere McCormick for rest of season. All right, let's see here. Jonathan in the live chat says PPR. Which four should I start? We have Jacoby, we have DJ Moore, we have Rashad White, we have DK Metcalf, Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, again, of those available options, I'd prefer to play Rashad White, DJ Moore, Jacoby Myers, and probably Ramondre. DK Metcalf's probably the odd man out this week. If you were worried about Desmond Ridder and his potential, at that point, you could theoretically swap Jacoby for DK. Obviously, DK Metcalf fully practicing the last 2 days. This is the first time in 3 weeks in which he practiced on Thursday or Wednesday, which is certainly a good sign going forward. As for your next question, says I have Burrow at quarterback, Bijan as my running back, started Kittle and Guerrero tonight. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so that's the way that I go about it. DJ Moore, Rashad White, Ramondre are for sure. It's kind of a coin toss as to which way you want to go regarding Jacoby Myers or DK. As of right now, I would suggest playing Jacoby, though. Thank you. Alrighty, we took care of that. Alexander says Brian Robinson or Charbonnet. If Charbonnet is active with no Kenneth Walker, I'd prefer to play Charbonnet there 10 times out of 10. Appreciate it. Jay McLaughlin says, desperation mode, Andrew. Cup 0.0 points. No Breece Hall, no Bucky Irving. Should I start entire Jets running backs, Davis and Allen, as my two flex, Achane with McLaurin, and sit BTJ in a standard? Yes. I think that is actually a pretty solid plan of action, Jay. Because again, you would assume that the Jets are going to take an early lead on the Jacksonville Jaguars, which would then force a lot of running within the second half. And if you can encapsulate the entire backfield opportunity share of both Davis and Allen, regardless of who scores, you're going to get the entire backfield opportunity share and the associated fantasy points. And considering it's a standard league where you get no points per reception, it leans me away from trying to play those running backs. It leans me away from playing like a wide receiver like BTJ in comparison to those running backs. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic strategy plan for the desperation mode that you're currently in. K Visioner sends in a question, says Jared Goff or Bo Nix. I'd prefer to play Jared Goff. Again, he has thrown 2 touchdowns in 8 of the last 11 games that he has started in. Again, he's been pretty solid as of late, and it should be a potential shootout not in Buffalo, but in Detroit against Buffalo. Sean K in the chat says McBride still has a chance to play. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Again, as of right now, fingers crossed that both of them are healthy, him and Njoku. But yeah, there's a possibility that if in fact you have both of them on roster, it'd probably be a good idea for those of you guys who have them to pick up an alternative pivoting option in the case in which it does occur that you'll need that. Sincere McCormick or Quentin Johnston in the flex. I'd play Sincere. The only reason I would ever play Quentin Johnston is if in fact Ladd McConkey was out. All right, let's see here. Balls Deep Adventure says Ertz or Smith for Miami tight end. I'd rather play Jonnu Smith. Ricardo says Evans or Higgins. I'd prefer to play Higgins. Both are fantastic plays, but that's the way that I'm going about it. Gino or Goff. I'd prefer Goff. 11 Davila Lobo sends in a question. Says questions in the chat, bro. All right, let me scroll up. Let me see if I can find it. I see it. Says pick 2. 1 running back, 1 flex. We have Kenneth Walker / Charbonnet. Cool. So as long as Kenneth Walker is out, Charbonnet automatically starts as RB1. And then of your available alternative options, you have Pacheco, Stevenson, Neighbors, Thielen. Okay, so the way that I'd go about it, Lobos, if you're playing in a half PPR standard league, I'd play Stevenson there as your flex. If it's a full PPR, I would play Thielen there. Thank you. In the event in which Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker are both active, you would play Stevenson as your RB1, and then you would play Thielen in your flex. Thank you. Okay, good to go there. PPR, yeah. So at that point, just roll with Thielen and Charbonnet. In the event in which obviously Kenneth Walker is active, then you would just play Ramondre and Charbonnet. Thank you. Evans, Metcalf, Harrison Jr. Yeah, you got to play. You got to play Evans there. Nick says Kenneth Walker is out. I mean, he's expected to be. He hasn't practiced each of the last 2 days. Didn't play last week. So expect him to probably miss again. Nate Nix in the chat says, how confident are you in A.J. Brown over CeeDee Lamb and Cortland Sutton this week? Look, I would assume, because what I have seen from the Eagles offense, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Just like in the same way in which we've heard all week long, oh, Debo's going to get the ball more. He certainly got more opportunity. The only difference being A.J. Brown, when given the opportunity, will deliver. And when he does, he delivers in spades. I mean, again, I'm very confident that he's going to be given a greater share of opportunity in order to succeed. Am I 100% confident that he can absolutely, without a doubt, blindly outscore both of the other two alternatives? No. Because Courtland Sutton is a machine. If he scores a touchdown, he's going to probably end up with 8 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown, and could very easily in a full PPR outscore A.J. Brown if A.J. Brown doesn't get that touchdown upside. So, again, when we're comparing those three, it's a very close competition considering they're all very good receivers. But as of right now, the inside track, I would assume, leans in the direction of A.J. Brown. But Courtland Sutton, not too far behind him, based on where I have him ranked, of course. DK or Thielen? I'd prefer to play Thielen as of right now. Primetime says pick 1, Nico, A.J. Brown, Higgins. Oh, sorry, pick 2. Yeah, I'll take Nico and A.J. Brown there pretty happily. Ramon says, just to show some love, go Jacobs. Just wait on it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much, Ramon. You've been very generous tonight. A-Dub in the chat says full PPR, Garrett Wilson or Waddle. Conventional wisdom will tell you to play Garrett Wilson. My heart tells me to play Waddle in that circumstance. Because, again, that matchup is just too delicious against the Texans secondary that just can't stop a soul. Drop Bucky for Charbonnet. Only if, in fact... Okay, so if you're in a win-to-advance situation, okay, you're in a win-to-advance. Like, you cannot... It's not a 2-week playoffs. If Bucky Irving tomorrow is inactive and Kenneth Walker is also inactive and they're not practicing, at that point I'd say okay. Because you need to pick him up to play him to win. All right, guys. So, like I typically do every night here when we live stream, we've answered questions for the last hour plus. Again, that's pretty much where I'm going to call it. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow with some hidden gems tomorrow afternoon. Obviously, tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. PST, I'll also be live here on the channel like I am every Friday night. I'll be back Saturday afternoon from 1 p.m. and beyond. And, of course, Sunday morning with updated rankings on screen for 3 consecutive hours, 7 to 10 a.m. PST. If you guys have any questions, be sure to swing on by throughout those hours. Outside of that, we're answering a couple more questions that we're heading out. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Thursday night. I understand this Thursday night game was incredibly underwhelming, but let's hope for the best going forward, and let's hope that if you potentially played somebody that had an underwhelming performance, maybe someone on the opposing side that you're playing against can match it, or maybe you can have a heroic effort from your Jamar Chase or Saquon Barkley that could go for 30 points and absolutely fucking blast the other team that you're playing against. Fingers crossed. Okay, last couple questions here. Let's see here. Animert Noob sends in a question. Says, how crazy would I be to start Dowdle over Achane? If you're playing in a standard league, 0 points per reception, I would say you're perfectly fine in doing so. If you're playing in any sort of point per reception format, I think it's crazy. Yeah, I think it's objectively crazy, especially in a full PPR. In a half PPR, I could understand it, but based on where he has been trending towards in terms of the reception counts, the receiving touchdown, capacity, I think Achane's just an auto start. B. Amos says, Kyler or Russell? I prefer to play Kyler. And Sutton or Flowers, I prefer to play Sutton. Thank you. All right, guys. Somebody had said, Lee Flores says, pick up the Colts defense for Week 17. Yes, absolutely. They play against some pretty advantageous matchups going forward. Appreciate y'all. Okay, guys. Much love. Cards, Bills, Colts, Week 15 to 17. As of right now, for this week, I'd like to play the Cardinals defense. The week after, I'd like to play the Bills defense. The week after, I'd like to play the Bills defense again. So the Cards and Bills are the ones that you want to keep there, Chris. Kenneth Walker or Ramondre Stevenson. Even if Kenneth Walker plays, I'm playing Ramondre. Quentin Johnston or Sincere McCormick. Again, I answered this a little bit earlier, Chris. I'd play Sincere McCormick. The only time I would ever play Quentin Johnston instead of McCormick is if, in fact, Ladd McConkey was out this weekend. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. I'm cueing the music. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll be back tomorrow with Hidden Gems and, of course, live streaming tomorrow, 7 p.m. PST. I'll see you guys. Peace.